So you may remember in my last video, I sent this huge surface base to Minmus using an SSTO, and it can build pretty much anything it wants to on the surface there. And you may remember at the end of that video, I mentioned I was going to go to Sarnus, or basically Saturn. Well, I scaled that down a little bit because I built this thing, and it was a little bit too big for my computer to handle, so I came up with this. This is the Kerbal 1, and on the front there is a Ibis, which is the same one I sent to Minmus, just slightly modified. And in that back portion there, that is the main mothership tug top thing. We're going to send the Ibis to Ike, and then we're going to use that to build things and send them to Duna. And we're going to find a really good landing spot on Duna and land like a huge base there after we build it on Ike. As you can see here, this is a little preview of the base that we're going to put on Duna. And then once we have that, we can build anything we want to on Duna. Anything. But as you see, it's not as simple as that in practice. So here's the massive rocket I built to launch the Kerbal system into orbit and eventually to Duna. And this rocket took forever to make because every time something would go wrong, my computer would just freeze and it would crash completely. So just too many parts, too big of a rocket. And so it took some guesswork on what was going wrong with it. I had a problem of it was so heavy it was actually collapsing onto itself. But as you can see, it got it into orbit. We needed some help from the engines there, the other engines. But it did the job for the most part. So as you can see, I used the nuclear engines on the main mothership there to kind of help with going into orbit. This also has vector engines on the back of it, behind the little nuclear engines, just in case I need a boost in thrust to weight. But I used absolutely every engine I could, because the thrust to weight just turned out to not be exactly what I needed. And we've got on the end there, we have a classic, any base U1, the one that I used for Minmus in the last video about, the Minmus launch base and everything like that. Same kind of thing. And then the payload here, we have 2 ORSATs. I wasn't sure which one I really needed, so I just made 2 different satellites with the 2 different, scanner relay things. And so we've got basically everything we need to scan out potential landing sites and stuff like that. So the thrust to weight is pretty low on the efficient nuclear engines, so I had to do several passes there. Obviously shortened down quite a lot from the actual live video. But after several passes with the nuclear engines, we're on our way to Duna. Beautiful shot there, leaving Kerbal behind. Now, does it feel like we're too far from home, giving all the Jewel missions and the potential Sarnus mission, just like Saturn, that I've been planning to do. And here we are arriving at Duna and slowing down, of course, because you don't want to just zoom right past it. And we're officially in Duna orbit. And turns out I came in the wrong direction, so I went out to the apoapsis, which took 30 days, and reversed our orbit, which is just a simple matter of firing in retrograde until your retrograde becomes prograde. And we got a quick encounter with Ike. It's very easy to get encounters with Ike. It's so huge and so close to Duna. And I was going to release the satellite. Turns out, though, I didn't really put much thought into the design of it, so I needed to work on the satellite, but my little Kerbal here is a bit clumsy. So we broke one of the magnetometers off, which are just for show, but I mean, I still had to have him repair it here in a minute. So we didn't have any power on the satellite, or really even an antenna. So I stuck that little antenna on there, and I stuck the, I always forget the acronym for those, but the radio thermoisotopic generator, or whatever it's called. And we stuck something else on there. I forgot. And then we're just going to repair the little magnetometer and get back in. And now we're ready to go with this little guy. Got to deploy everything and actually get him away from the ship. These have to actually go into a polar orbit, so it needs quite a lot of delta V. Plus, I plan to use this at Duna after this, as you'll see here in a minute. So we go into a polar orbit. We change it around. Pretty easy. Ike has some low gravity. And then we do our orbital scan and narrow down where we're going to land at. Now, the options are pretty big with Ike, and the orbital scans aren't exactly the most detailed. So I just went with what looked like the best place to land ore-wise, and put a waypoint on it. This is all stock, by the way. You use KerbNet. Just click on your probe core and then click KerbNet access, and you can put waypoints like that and stuff. Pretty cool. And now we're just going to get our ship into a polar orbit to release our Base. And this is the same one I used on Minmus, except it has a few little design tweaks. There was a hurricane on Duna. Wasn't aware that was possible. But anyway, so we released our Base. This one actually has a larger launch pad, because originally intended, as crazy as it sounds, to land the entire mothership on top of it and refuel like that. You'll notice that the mothership has a docking port there. Now this is feasible. I'm pretty sure it has vector engines and enough delta V, but it's not feasible for my computer at the moment. I get a immediate error that says ran out of memory, and so I might need to do a few upgrades or just get a whole different computer before I can do something like that, unfortunately. So as you see, this lands the same way. It swaps to its like VTOL mode, and it has a nice little touchdown. Totally wasn't like my 4th try doing that. So here I'm just turning on the little flashing lights, like navigational lights, making them blink because they were off for whatever reason. And I like the enlarged launch pad on this. It actually makes it easier to launch things. It looks more realistic, probably protects a lot more of the ship. And there's Duna, our final destination of this mission, but not just yet. We gotta finish up here and plant a flag, because of course anywhere you go you have to plant a flag. So here we go. We're going to launch an Ibis 1.3T. Now this is a ship I haven't showed on the channel, but it's been around for a while. I made this off camera. It's a really neat little like low delta V rocket thing, and we're just building it using this simple construction mod. And I had a few little issues with this, as you'll see here in a minute. This is made to land pretty much anywhere. Atmosphere, no atmosphere, on like medium-sized planets. I think whenever I deployed the landing gear, that got stuck on the ship.
One eternity later.
Anyway, so we launch it again, and this actually turned out to have a problem that keeps reoccurring with my stuff. Even though this launch looks perfect, I had to make sure SAS was on the entire time, because otherwise it starts spinning out of control by some phantom force. But it has no problem getting into orbit around Ike and then getting Duna. This is made for atmospheric landings. The T on that actually stands for TETCO, because I made this particular one for the Moon TETCO, which is a Titan analog on Sarnis, since this whole mission was originally supposed to be for Sarnis, but I decided to do this as like a dry run. So we quickly dock up with the mothership here, and the mothership's going to carry us over to Duna, because I don't want to waste that much Delta V getting over to Duna. Mainly because we're going to have to get into an actual like polar orbit of Duna too. Here you'll see. And then we finally dock. That docking was absolutely clumsy as can be. It took forever. So here's our mothership, and it's just got the little Ibis on there. And then we're getting into a pretty eccentric orbit of Duna, and we're going to bring that down. And we're going to need to bring our ore set back over to Duna, because we're going to need to find a landing spot that has good ore on Duna now. Now the mission plan here is, as you've probably seen earlier, is to land the Ibis on Duna in the correct spot, do some surveys, check that the ore level's okay, because we ran into that problem back there on Ike, that the ore, when we landed, wasn't actually that high. So it turns out that there's actually a very tiny spot that has the highest ore concentration on Duna, which gives me hope that we're going to find like some really good ore percentages there. But just in case, we're going to land the Ibis there and check out and make sure that it has the correct ore stuff, and then try to land the main base, which you'll see later that I build in the same spot. So after about 50 waypoints, we finally get to the correct little centered one there, and delete all the other ones. So the Ibis has a lot of cargo space, as you can see, and we'll load it up with enough stuff to make like a little surface base. It's more of a proof of concept than anything, as you'll see. But it's still pretty cool to build an entire little base with just cargo parts. So here we are lined up with the landing spot. And you want to aim a little bit ahead of it, especially given the rotation of Duna and all of that. And so you kind of just rotate and arrow drag right into the correct spot. Takes a bit of getting used to. I'm getting better slowly at landing on the dot. So here we are adjusting it a little bit. Helps to have a little bit of delta V to adjust your orbit. And we got some drogue chutes just to slow down a tiny bit. Duna's atmosphere is so thin it really doesn't help all that much, but it does keep you oriented correctly, especially when you're using something like aerospikes, which doesn't have they don't have any gimbal at all, so it's kind of difficult to aim them around. So here we are at the landing spot. Nice flat spot. As you'll see, have a bit of trouble getting back to it later. But here we go. And we're just going to deploy absolutely everything. Close everything up that we don't need and get the ladders out here in a second at some point. Open up the doors there to the cargo bay. And then we're deploying all of the ladders. And ladders with a D. And then this is like extra crew space. And I thought it'd be pretty neat if this is like a semi-long-term lander, like they're landing, doing some sights, and then returning back up to orbit and meeting with the mothership and whatnot. They might want some extra space to stretch their legs and store samples and stuff like that. I didn't deploy one of those because we're actually going to use one of those to make our little surface base. As you can see, I pulled it off there and stored it on the side. And then we're just getting the probe part of the little surface base built, and then that's like an atmospheric sampler, but we're going to kind of pretend like it's a life support unit, like makes oxygen or something, filters the air for the little Kerbal inside. And then we're going to aim that at Ike, because I actually chose this particular landing spot rather than the bigger ore spot on the other side of the planet, because this one faces Ike constantly. And as you know, our main Ike mining facility is aiming toward this. It's on the right side of Ike. So basically we have constant communication with the Ike base. So we have a cool little communication ring here where we've got relays in orbit, we've got the Ike base and everything, so we never lose contact with Kerbal. Pretty much never lose contact with Kerbal. So it's a pretty neat thing. And now we're just pulling everything in, and then we're going to go over to our Ike base, our before mentioned Ike base, and build our main landing thing. This is called the Anybase U2. This is the second version of the Anybase. And how is it better than the one that you're looking at right now? Well, it's square. Be there or be square. And as you can see, it didn't really take that many rocket parts to build. And I didn't know this, but apparently the Simple Construction mod was updated. I had to update it later to get rid of a little menu that was stuck on the screen. And turns out the rocket parts kind of went up. It takes like 2,000 to build some tiny little thing later. So I actually got away scot-free with building this for a couple hundred parts or whatever that was. So this thing can actually launch itself, though very awkwardly all the way to Duna. We go into a polar orbit because apparently I just love polar orbits, and we're doing many aero breaks. And then finally, after approximately 5 million aero breaks, we completely miss our target and deploy some drogue chutes, and then the main chutes, and way too many chutes just shoot. And then we're using our engines to slow down because it still wasn't enough parachutes. And we're landed. Just not in the right spot. But luckily this has almost the same ore percentage. 10% rather than 12%. I don't really think that matters too much. So we're just going to lower everything down and refuel a little bit. Because I originally planned that I might do a little hop over to the spot, and I tried that. But like 30 crashes of the game later, I just gave up on that. And this seemed like a great spot after that many game restarts. So we're going to build the rugged truck that you also may have seen from the Minmus base. And you'll see these again in the future. This is just testing and reiterating hardware and testing it in a real actual like environment it's going to be used in, and seeing what I can improve and change. So this is the second version of this truck. Might be another version. I had a few problems with this. It's got a little grappling arm on top of it. I have like 3 robotic arms, the exact same ones, on this thing altogether. And we're going to add a little extra cargo space there from all of those extra little crew capsules that I brought, extra little airlocks. And we're going to add 2 of those on the back because we actually need to bring back all the crew from the Ibis, because turns out the crew from the Ibis couldn't make it back to orbit because I didn't have enough Delta V in the dang thing. So here we are. That little drop-down piston thing is something I added so you can build stuff like this and actually drive it away from the base, because that's a problem that the first any base had, because everything was built on top of it. So there we are driving away, and I can actually thank my fiance for driving a lot of this. This whole section here is just her driving, and you'll probably see her driving more again, because there's going to be a lot of driving with this Duna base, since half of it's nearly 20 kilometers away from the other half of it, which I guess helps with the building ships whole thing and them not being near your main colony. But we're probably going to do a refuel mission to the Ibis to get it back to the mothership. Because, yeah, like I said, it doesn't have enough Delta V, unfortunately. So, yeah, you're going to see me, like, trucking a whole giant fuel tank over to this Ibis. So here we are, and we kind of skid out. A little bit slick on Duna. All that sand and the low gravity. And so we're going to pull up here and immediately just like grab the little any base there here in a second. Not the any base, the I guess you call it like the any base mini. The mini base, if you would. Because I kind of messed up with it. You're supposed to deploy the ground connector thingy with a Kerbal, like out of their inventory, and hey, put it here. Kind of like the cargo parts that you put down, like the little like solar panels and sights and stuff you can put down. And we're going to grab it with the robot arm, pull it in. That robot arm is the same robot arm used in the Saving Jeb from Lathe video. Pretty much everything you'll see in my videos will get reused and reiterated in something else at some point. We're going to go ahead and take the 2 crew capsules off because they were in a horrible position on the bed of the truck. And we're going to take some of the stuff that was getting in the way off and put that in our cargo space on the side there. I'm going to add this on the top like we're in The Martian here. Actually, I built this truck after watching The Martian. I was very inspired by the little truck he drives around in. I thought that was really neat. So I was like, I need a little utility truck like that, a fully electric one. Except I don't want mine to ever run out of power. This thing's got like 20 ISRUs on it. So here we are. We're away. We've got all of our crew. A little extra crew space on the top. And we got a guy in that one that the Clow's scrapping in the bed. I'm sure that's safe. I was convinced I broke something there, but I just ran over some blueberries. So I didn't break anything. And we're going up straight up a mountain. Turns out turning your traction control down to nothing is better for going up mountains, which seems pretty counterintuitive. We're zooming in here, seeing if we can spot the any base, and it's right up there. Can't really see it. And then we're pulling up, and I had to turn down all of my graphics to keep from crashing the second I got in render distance of this thing. And we're trying to grab it with the robot arm just to get the crew off, and it is jumping around. The whole base is sliding. We got to do something about this base sliding stuff. And you'll see I do something about it. And it looks pretty funny, admittedly. It almost looks like some kind of giant deformed chicken with those long legs. So I built this little mover thing. It's literally just called Mover. And I was going to build it. And as you can see, it takes 2,920 parts after I updated Simple Construction. A lot more than I anticipated. And accidentally spawned it in upside down. Then I spawned it in again, and it was too low.
A few moments later.
I spawned it again, and this time I actually like fired my rocket engines and built it while midair, and then landed again, and it was a mess. And then I flipped over before I could get where I actually wanted to go. So I ended up in this little pit. But turns out the pit's kind of flat-ish. So the pit works out. So this space will forever be in a little sunless pit. And the mover is now just getting in the way. So you'll see here in a minute. I just go to the map view, and terminate it. And then voila, our base is finished. Got everything deployed on it. We're going to bring a little truck down, park it under it. And it's semi like not on any slopes now, so you can actually park stuff at it and not have everything slide constantly. I'd like to mount this to the surface, but the way surface mounter things that are stock in Kerbal Space Program, the way that they work, you can't really connect stuff to them. You have to dock to it, and it's a mess. And I had so much trouble with this, like 30, 40 crashes. I wasn't going to try it. So hey, if you like this video and you want to see more of this Duna base and my future Jewel, Sarnis, and hell, I'll probably even go to another solar system at one point, just stay tuned for the channel, subscribe, and like the video. It really helps a lot. And leave your comments on what you think I should do with this and what I should do on Duna now, since I can literally launch and build anything there that I want to. And thank you for watching. Bye.